Hello, Nets fans, and welcome to another episode of the Brooklyn Buzz podcast presented by OTGBasketball.com. I am your host, Nick Fay. With me, my Australian friend, Jack Manuell. What's up, Jack?
Nick, we're out of getting coaches fired in Brooklyn. What's going on here? We're coach killers.
Coach killers out here. Did not expect that one on Sunday night. The Nets are super banged up. They go into Memphis and get the W. No Jeremy Lin, no Allen Crabbe, no D'Angelo Russell. Rondé comes out early in that game. And the Nets didn't have much energy at that point when Rondé came out. Next thing you know, bounce back, pull off the W in Memphis, and Fizdale's fired the next day. What were your thoughts on that game? Right, your initial reaction. We'll kind of go through quarter by quarter.
Yeah, so the start of the game, it seemed like Memphis was sort of dictating the tempo, Nick. We were around the mark, but we weren't able to get into our sort of pace and space offense. From memory, I think the Grizzlies are bottom three when it comes to their pace in the NBA. Not to slow things down, the whole grit and grind.
28th, I believe.
28th, yeah, and I believe we're still first. Last time I looked in terms of pace, so we like to move it. We like to get into quick sets, get the open guys, get in running. But that just couldn't happen in the first half. But the third quarter, things just seemed to click. The offense got going. We went on this 22-6 run, and then for the entire third quarter, we outscored the Grizzlies 32-18. So we were able to dictate the game, get it on our terms more. And because our game allows us to sort of, we shoot threes, we get quick, we can have quick possessions. We like to make the most of the possessions in transition. We can get into big leads. But the fact that the Grizzlies sort of clawed it back a little bit towards the end of the third and the fourth, but then there was the obvious, the real controversial issue of Fizdale benching Marc Gasol in the fourth. We can save that for a Grizzlies podcast. I'm sure there's plenty of Grizzlies podcasts out there that can chat about that. But it was nice. It's just because it was unexpected in a way. But I was also, going into the game semi-confident because, our boys they've got a lot of heart. And I think that comes from Coach Kenny. He's really instilling our guys with a lot of confidence no matter who's out there and next man up mentality.
Yeah, like you said, the game you could feel it. Early on, I remember tweeting like the Nets had no juice. Memphis was kind of getting into them defensively. It seemed like they weren't getting into their sets until under 10 seconds on the shot clock. Then, late second, it kind of picked up a little bit the pace. And like you said, third quarter, big run. Fourth quarter, we're just trying to hold on to lead. And then obviously the Marc Gasol benching in the fourth. But who really stepped up for me, it was an impressive game from DeMarre Carroll.
Yes.
Like he really came up. He hit a lot of big threes and, he just seemed like he was making plays exactly when the Nets needed it. Also, I know Coach Kenny mentioned this. Caris LeVert, Trevor Booker brought some great energy off the bench. LeVert has looked great of late. I mean, I'm so happy to be watching LeVert attack the rim the way he has. And a few times he probably should get a foul call, but he doesn't. But it'll come eventually.
Yeah, not to throw any shade at D'Lo here, Nick, because he's my boy, and I wrote a really nice piece on him on OTG.
Very good.
Hashtag shameless self-promotion. But do you think the injury to D'Lo has almost helped Caris in a way?
Yeah, it definitely has. And I don't think it's throwing shade. I think it's just the opportunity. Yeah. And the fact that D'Lo and Jeremy Lin are both out. The Nets need a second ball handler. And like we've known, Sean Kilpatrick, Isaiah Whitehead have been inconsistent. Whitehead had a nice game in Houston. We'll talk about that later. But Caris has been somebody Coach Kenny's starting to be able to rely on as that secondary ball handler or as the primary ball handler when he goes to the bench. So it's a great asset. Me personally, going forward in the NBA, I think you want as many ball handlers and playmakers as you possibly can at every position. So having a Caris, having a Spencer, having a D'Lo, and a Jeremy Lin possibly if he ever comes back healthy, it just sets the Nets up in a great position to have some real playmakers, especially when you got shooters like a Joe Harris and Allen Crabbe who can really light it up. Joe Harris, your guy,
my boy.
Jack is trying to get my man in the 3-point contest. And I think like he possibly could get in. Like, when he's coming off the screen at the top of the key, and if he has any type of space, it's almost like a knockdown three. He's been huge.
I love his form. I just absolutely love his form. But yeah, going back on your point, Nick, about the ball handlers, you look at the prototype, the be all and end all out in Golden State. Those death lineups. There's 5 ball handlers out there. Maybe not Clay so much. Obviously, he's a bit more of an off-ball player. But 4 to 5 ball handlers. I can see Coach Kenny in the future playing lineups with Lin, D'Lo, and LeVert. And I think in ways it can work because they've all, apart from Lin, really, they're all sort of long, they're all sort of stretchy, they've all got the handle, and I think, you can experiment with those sort of lines. So in the future, knock on wood, hopefully there's a day that comes when we're all healthy, and doesn't really happen very often, especially this season. But yeah, it definitely gives us some experimentation. Yeah, big shout outs as well, DeMarre Carroll, 4 of 6 from 3, 6 rebounds, also put up 2 assists, 2 steals, and a block. And then your boy Trevor Booker, that putback slam was just
that was mean.
Get the muscles up. He posted a double-double, 16 points, 11 rebounds. It just shows the value of the veterans that are having on our squad. Like Joe Harris is an experienced guy, 26 years old. He's not really a vet, but he's had his time in the NBA. Trevor Booker, DeMarre Carroll, these are guys that know how the NBA works. They know how to put up buckets. They know how to make a play. And that's having an impact on our young guys. That's having an impact on Caris LeVert. Looking at some of the Nets Facebook pages, which I'm following and a part of, everyone's really happy with the acquisition of Carroll just because of the mentoring influence he's having on D'Angelo Russell. And I'm sure that's still a thing because D'Lo's obviously on the road trip, as we've seen from Sean Kilpatrick and Rondé's Snapchat. So he's a part of the squad. And, DeMarre Carroll, Trevor Booker, those guys, Alan Crabb, Joe Harris, it's just a nice blend right now. Now, we always chat about like trade rumors or whatever, but let's just enjoy them now and having them for what they are, because as much as we're not going to, win 50 games this season, we're a lot of fun to watch and there's a lot of heart and a lot of grit.
Yeah, I mean, you love this group. I think this group of players is easy to love, but I want to talk to DeMarre Carroll and that trade. The fact that we traded Justin Hamilton, picked up DeMarre Carroll, a first and a second round pick, that is looking like an amazing trade. Just not that, like you said, we're not going to win 50 games, but Carroll's helping our players develop. He's helping us win games in the meantime, and he still has, a few years on his contract. So it's not the worst case because he's actually living up to the hype if he can just stay healthy.
Yeah, so you look at his, I agree with you, Nick, because you look at his contract, it's not that bad. Like, it's not a Mozgov contract, a Luol Deng contract, like, because he's actually contributing. And, like, he's a wing. He's a 3-and-D guy. He's got the hustle. He fits in he's a prototype of what you want in today's NBA. So, we got, I think the second rounder would have been enough to get rid of Justin Hamilton, but the fact that we almost got a guy in DeMarre Carroll, I was always confident. I think both of us were going into the season, just looking at him in the preseason. We mentioned in the earlier Brooklyn Buzz pods just how his legs have looked.
Healthy.
He looks healthy, and despite the fact that he missed that Rockets game with a bit of a chest problem, upper respiratory problem. Brian Lewis on Twitter tweeted out that he's going to be fine for the next game against the Mavs. He wasn't even listed on our injury list, so he's going to miss a game or two. But at the same time, he's there. He's part of the squad, and he's absolutely contributing and then some.
Yeah, and you can definitely feel his presence on the court, just a veteran out there, especially when they have the super young groups. So that's always amazing. Also, our guy Jared Allen is starting to pick up some minutes here and there.
Yep.
He's had his pros and cons on the floor. You definitely see the rookie mistakes, but you also see the flashes of athleticism and the ability to actually defend a pick and roll where sometimes you have Zeller and Mozgov who really can't do much. So that versatility that Allen is just going to consistently get all season, I think is going to be huge. But anything else you want to mention about the Memphis game that really stuck out to you?
Yeah, so our shooting, Nick, 44.9% from 3, 13 of 29, holding the Grizzlies to 32% from 3 and 40% from the floor. Our rebounding, again, was really good when we get on those boards.
Impressive.
Team rebounding, yep. So 53 to 42 there. And despite the fact that we had more turnovers, we were able to capitalize in the fast break and off the Grizzlies turnover themselves. We were 23 points to the Grizzlies, 9 off turnovers, and 21 to 13 in the fast break. So despite the fact that we might not have taken care of the ball amazingly, when we capitalize on those opportunities and get into the fast break, that's when we look really dangerous.
For sure.
Yeah, we had hustled, and everyone's like the grit and grind of Memphis, but the grit and grind, the Brooklyn grit is what won out.
It really did. So, I mean, it's just nice to see. And Coach Kenny did, an absolutely great job. Like I said at the beginning of the pod, they were without arguably 4 of their top 5 players, if you want to throw Carroll in the top 5 or something. And they come out and they get a double-digit win on the road. Obviously, we have to take it with somewhat of a grain of salt because Memphis was on an 8-game losing streak, now 9. Marc Gasol benched in the 4th. Mike Conley's injured. Grizzlies aren't a very good team, but with the injuries we have, we can't feel bad for anybody.
Absolutely not.
And I want to point out Spencer Dinwiddie, even though he struggled in the first half and he had a rough shooting night, I still felt positive impacts from his game on the floor.
I think that's the great thing about him, Nick. You know, we love it when we see those pull-up threes and when he gets those 20-point nights. But even when he's not active on the box score when it comes to the points, you look at his the entire box score. He's always had 5 to 7 assists. He barely has more than 2 turnovers. So he's always involved, and he might not have a great shooting night, but he's always, you know, he's a big part of why we are able to get our flow in offense. Like, he's the one that finds the look for DeMarre half the time. He's been, you know, I've mentioned this a million times, I'm going to harp on it, but he's been symptomatic of when we play well. You know, Spencer Dinwiddie generally is a big part of it, whether it's, you know, with assists, with his passing game, or he's able to get to the line, or he's able to get guys good looks.
Yeah, and I think that makes some of the passes he's thrown have been extremely, you know, pinpoint accurate, and he just keeps getting more confident in that pick and roll. I think right now he might be a little fatigued. You know, looking last night in Houston, looking at Memphis game, he doesn't seem to have maybe the same energy, but like you said, he's still having a positive impact. Obviously, going from playing 20 minutes a game and not being a primary player on the team to going to being, you know, the lead ball handler of the team and playing 30 plus minutes, and not only, you know, being responsible for a lot offensively, he's usually on the other team's best point guard.
Exactly, and I mean he's a decent defender as well. So
You just got to watch out with those fouls. That's really been hurting his game.
yeah, we remember that Lakers game. That's the one thing that really hurt us. And despite the fact that D'Lo is healthy, if Dinwiddie had have been, you know, because when he was on, he was on. So, and the fact that we really lack that depth. So if he can sort of rein that in a little bit, then it's certainly going to help his game. But you know, the time will come, and it comes with like you mentioned with fatigue. You know, you stretch out that hand, you go for that reach that you shouldn't go for, and those silly fouls come, and you know, before you know it, you got 3 fouls in the second quarter. So he's just got to be a little more careful. But you know, nothing but good things from Spencer.
Exactly. He's getting better every game, and some of that comes with having, you know, the lack of a rim protector on the Nets. But enough about the Memphis game, which was just, you know, a good all-around team win, something the Nets can really build on. Last night they played Houston Rockets, you know, arguably the best team in the NBA right now, scorching hot. James Harden is just dominating everybody. Chris Paul's back, a ton of weapons all over the floor. But hey, the Nets, you know, stayed in this game for the most part. Obviously, it got to a 20-point lead at some points, but they were able to keep a little bit of pressure on the Rockets, and missing, you know, Allen Crabbe, D'Lo, Jeremy Lin, Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, and DeMarre Carroll. I was not disappointed with the performance I saw from this Net squad.
No, it seems to be a consistent theme for us, Nick. Whenever we jump on Brooklyn Buzz, it's very rare that we'll go in on many Nets players, or just we're always really happy with the effort, and that's what you want from a team. Like you can only ask so much against, for me, what I think is the best player in the NBA right now, and the best team, sorry, and the best player with James Harden. You know, we'll be coming out with our power rankings on OTG Basketball. I had them at number 1. They've just been absolutely lights out from 3. Their 3-and-D system has gone to a new level. Their defense has gone up. James Harden, if he's not the MVP, then I don't know who is. You know, LeBron's probably a close second, but he's been absolutely outstanding. 20 of his 37 points came against us in the first quarter. In fact, when he went out of the game at the 128 mark, he was actually outscoring the entire Nets team. Like he's phenomenal to watch. He's just an otherworldly offensive beast. He was 5 from 5 from 3-point range in that first quarter. But the Nets made some nice adjustments in the second. You know, Coach Kenny getting really creative with that zone defense, and it shocked the Rockets a little bit. You know, despite the fact that we went down by double digits, 15 points in today's NBA is nothing. And the fact that, you know, we were able to fight and we were able to still play our game, it was still a decent performance when you lose basically probably your entire starters. Like that, those 5 names that you mentioned, that's probably our 5 best players. I would not hesitate to say that.
Yeah, exactly. And when you lose those guys and you're playing one of the best teams, it's tough. But like you said, shout out to James Harden. He's probably one of my favorite players in the league. Not only is he playing like one of the best players in the league right now, but like you said, he's probably one of the most exciting players to watch right now. You know, he's always has the ball in his hands, pick and roll, driving to the rim. I think he's a ton of fun. But back to the net side, I love when they threw out the zone. I thought it was kind of cool. You know, throw out something different, switch it up. And hey, it's a nice key to have in your back pocket, especially if Kenny's in a, you know, jam somewhere down the road when things actually matter. It's good to have little tools like that to throw at an offense that's really cooking.
Absolutely. And Coach Kenny said himself that it was the first time he's ever done it. So to quote him following the game, he was like, quote, when they scored 43, it was like, we've got to do something different here, guys. They scored a lot of points, but it helped to slow them down and at least made them pause and make them think a little. I always thought about it, and I've never had the guts to try it. So the fact that he had the guts to do it, not in like a preseason game against like a Knicks or a Sixers, but in a full-blown NBA game against the best team in the NBA, that takes a heap of guts, and there's not many coaches out there that would go on a whim to do that. So, I mean, it shows the support that he's got from a Sean Marks, and we were talking about Coach Fizdale's firing. Coach Kenny's going to be here for a long time, Nets fans, so there's nothing to worry about there.
Yeah, definitely for sure. But let's talk about the players in this game a little bit. Big game from Isaiah Whitehead.
Yeah.
He was 10 to 16 from the field, 1 of 5 from three is not nice. 5 turnovers isn't great, but 24 points. He definitely had some really good moves. Still, the problem with Whitehead is always going to be decision making and what he can do as a playmaker, or if he's just more of that shooting guard. But you had to like some of the flashes you've seen from him last night.
Look, absolutely. The guy's been in and out of the G League, and he was called up on Monday morning. Like, you can only say good things about his performance. Like, the turnovers, wasn't great, but the hustle that the guy had, the fact that he stepped up out of nowhere. Like, because we were saying in the past that Sean Kilpatrick might have overtaken him in the rotation, but Isaiah certainly put his name forward with a performance like that, and it just shows that despite the fact that we've had injuries, every guy is putting their name out there, showing Coach Kenny, hey, give me some minutes. Hey, I deserve it. Whether it was Kilpatrick the other night when we were talking about in that Portland win, it's really nice to see the fact that it shows the culture of Brooklyn right now, and the whole Nets franchise is really positive. And it's not the fact that, like, even a Mozgov, we've shit on him plenty in this Brooklyn Buzz pod, but he's had moments where he's been rebounding okay. He's actually doing some things that benefit the team. Yes, he's had his DNPs, but he's still out there producing when being asked. Same with Sean Kilpatrick. Same with Quincy Acey. All these guys who are probably like 9 to 12 in the rotation. They're doing stuff for Coach Kenny, and they're not doing it out of spite and going, hey, this is what I should be. Give me more minutes. They're doing it because it benefits the team, and they want to play for Coach Kenny. It's just nice to see, and I'm never going to be hard on a young guy like an Isaiah Whitehead who's still trying to find his legs in today's NBA. And I think he's got a place on this Nets team, especially because you can never have, as you mentioned earlier, Nick, you can never have too many ball handlers. And when he has those sort of nights, there might be few and far between, but there's going to be those times when we need it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's just the development. He's still a young player. He's a second-round pick. You don't really expect a ton out of him. He still needs time in the G League. And like you said, I think they brought this up on the broadcast, or I might even been you and I talking about this at one point too, is just how like every player is ready to go as soon as Kenny calls them. Like Sean Kilpatrick, for example, he wasn't playing much at all. He still comes out and plays. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of Mozgov, but the last 2 games are probably some of his best basketball. You could actually feel his presence inside a little bit. Obviously, he had that terrible missed layup in that one game, and he got punked by Chris Paul last night. But there were some positive moments out there from Mozgov, which is good to see.
Yeah, the fact that, like, I can't remember if I mentioned on our last Brooklyn Buzz where his agent was talking about the fact that he looked tired, and the reasoning behind his DNPs was his lack of conditioning following his Euro basketball. That might have been an issue with him because Mozgov is obviously that big sort of lumbering guy. He's not as fleet-footed as Jared Allen or even Tyler Zeller for that matter. But as you mentioned, Nick, any guy is going to step up for us. If we make a move for a guy in the G League, you talk about even last year, guys like Troy Daniels, Archie Goodwin, these sort of guys. We could get back, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made an impact, or whoever we pick up, whether it's an international guy off the waivers. I back whatever Sean Marks and Coach Kenny do because they instill the confidence and the will in our players to play the right way and the right way, the Brooklyn way.
Well, you mentioned bringing up a G League guy, and obviously, Whitehead did have the good game last night, and Kilpatrick has been struggling. What are your thoughts on bringing up somebody like a Milton Doyle who had a nice summer league for the Nets? And I know some fans have been kind of bickering about it. Maybe bring him up and give him a chance.
Look, if there's a time to do it, Nick, it's got to be now. You look at it, maybe not you wouldn't probably do it in the middle of a road trip because obviously that messes with the continuity a little bit. Might mess with the player itself, getting his sort of head right. It'd probably be better, start him off lightly at a home game at Barclays. But I can't see why it wouldn't happen. Obviously, it's still only 20 games or so into the season. So it's a bit early to be making any huge rash moves. So obviously guys like Doyle won't be having 20 minutes a night, but if Isaiah is able to produce, then there's no reason why any of our other G League two-way guys can't. So I think Nets fans' frustration levels, while they might be warranted somewhat, you can't complain with what we've been when it comes to how we've been producing. Yes, there's ways to be better, and we've got a ways to go. But with what we've got, and in terms of the depth that we have, you can't really complain.
Yeah, I think, just given the injuries, and we've said this before on this podcast, just losing D'Angelo Russell and Jeremy Lin is huge. But the fact Alan Crabb is missing games, Rondé has been banged up. He missed games earlier this year. He's most likely going to miss more time with the injury he had. So it's definitely tough, and it's nice to see the young guys play hard. And I'm enjoying watching Caris LeVert handle the ball a lot, and the opportunity just seeing him develop. If he can just start to hit his 3-point shot, he'll be looking real good.
Oh yeah. How about the threes though, Nick?
Yeah. Oh, the threes in the Rockets game. We didn't even talk about that. Breaking records out here. 89 3-points attempted between the Rockets and the Nets last night. It was kind of awesome to watch. It's cool to be part of history. And we know the Nets jack up threes. And Jack, you were telling me the Rockets average over 44 threes a game.
Which is insane because we're second and we average just over 33 a game, which is ridiculous as well. There's going to be times, you were mentioning to me as well, Nick, the fact that 53s is almost nothing for this Rockets team. It's Daryl Morey and Mike D'Antoni are a match made in heaven. We love our guys, Coach Kenny and Sean Marks, but they've got something out there in Houston that we'll be aspiring to as well. We're developing a system as well that I think there's standards that have been set with Bob Myers, Steve Kerr, Daryl Morey, Coach Ainge, not Coach Ainge, Danny Ainge, and Coach Stevens. I think we're developing a nice little chemistry out in Brooklyn because we're almost like babies. We're almost learning a little bit. We're seeing what we could be if we had the talent, if we had the experience, because we don't have an MVP. D'Lo's probably our guy, and in ways he has a similar sort of game to James Harden. You look at a Caris LeVert who could be, who has star potential, maybe not superstar potential, but he certainly has the potential to be a very solid starter in today's NBA. But yeah, we're 33 and. You look at the difference in the percentage on the night. We shot 39 of them, but we made 10 of them. The Rockets, meanwhile, shot 50 of them, made 20 of them.
Yeah.
So it shows that, when it comes to, we're going to have our off nights, but the fact that we're still confident enough to jack them up, despite the fact that we're only making a paltry 25 or so percent, I'll back that. I like seeing that. I like guys that are still willing to shoot their shot, as they say.
Yeah, and it's part of the offense. And you brought up a great point. You talked about the relationship with Marks and Kenny Atkinson, which is something definitely that is a nice combo. But D'Antoni and Atkinson is part of D'Antoni's coaching tree. So he was an assistant coach for him, I believe, when he was in New York. So not only is, we have influences from the Spurs and Houston, so it's like a combination. We kind of have that offensive pot of the Rockets, but we need to start playing more defense like the Spurs. Yeah, but it's nice to see the influence for the Nets.
And I think as well, Nick, you can add in Atlanta as well.
Atlanta too. Yep, and even a little Golden State kind of. But even though there's no true ties, the basketball is a little bit similar. And I've seen articles written about Brooklyn playing similar ways of Golden State.
Definitely, you look at sort of our motion offense. There's a lot. We really value getting good open shots. The assists, we like to screen a lot. Whether for our open guys, whether it's for Crabbe or whether it's for Harris, there's a lot of similarities, and into the old, that 60-win Atlanta team, which DeMarre Carroll was a part of, coincidentally.
But that wraps it up for today. We'll be dropping another pod later this week. Jack, as always, thank you for hopping on, and you can always listen to the Brooklyn Buzz on Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, and OTGBasketball.com. Go Nets.